You wore your original Evan shoes that you wore.
I did. I wore my New Balance.
And didn't you want you to tell them that you wore your original shoes?
Tell them about your shoes.
And your shirt?
Tell them about your shoes. The idea of immortalizing the performance and the story and having it to show my children and their children someday was enough to kind of assuage those fears and sort of sell me on the idea. I was very scared to re-enter the world of Dear Evan Hansen for a myriad of reasons. I think obviously on a personal level, it's kind of a painful material. It's definitely very kind of a vulnerable place to go emotionally, and I did it for many years on Broadway and sort of put that chapter to bed in a way, and so it was a scary thought to kind of reopen that. And there's also a lot of expectation given the performance that I gave on Broadway, and sort of coming in, I felt a lot of external and internal like pressure to really deliver on that promise and create something that was just as exciting in a medium that's like a little bit less natural to me. But I think just the idea of the sheer number of people that would see it in such a short period of time that never would have really gotten to see this story was enough to kind of assuage those fears and sort of sell me on the idea. It was a combination of the idea of immortalizing the performance and the story and having it to show my children and their children someday. And then also the idea of just how many young people within one fell swoop will be able to be seen by it and hopefully be moved by it so quickly.
Well, Zoe Murphy is really such an iconic character. I saw Dear Evan Hansen about 3 years ago with my mom on Broadway. Not with Ben, of course. I wish I could have seen that performance, but I got to see it 3 feet away from your face, so that was fine. But she's such a powerful character. What really struck me when I saw her on Broadway was just her resilience and her strength. She's just a really strong woman, and I was so excited to be able to sing for the first time and work with Ben, and it was just an amazing opportunity that I really couldn't pass up.
Dear Evan Hansen, today is going to be an amazing day, and here's why.
Have you been doing those letters to yourself with Dr. Sherman?
I've been trying to. Have you ever felt like nobody was there?
No one signed your cast. Now we can both pretend we are friends.
I think there was sort of a collective realization that in terms of being able to make the movie with me, we're kind of running out of time and that the clock was ticking, and that everybody was really interested in really only making that version of the film, which I really appreciate. And I think it was sort of like a sink or swim, like now or never kind of a vibe. And I think everybody knew that this could really have the potential to be something special and was worth running against the clock to do, even in the midst of a pandemic, obviously, which was, very terrifying going in because we were one of the first sort of larger productions to go. So I think it was that understanding of it's kind of this is the moment, and just everybody all hands on deck kind of feeling, and we got it done.
It's a really special movie to make, but also, especially now more than ever, it's a really interesting time to have this movie come out. I think it's really, really special. We're making a movie about a lot of characters feeling isolated in their own ways, while making a movie in the middle of a pandemic where a lot of people are having this similar feeling of feeling isolated and feeling alone. And I think this is a movie that is going to allow people to feel really seen in that way, and is going to have a lot of impact on people because of that.
It's a tough story. It's not an easy one to watch alone, and so I think the fact that we're getting to go back into the theaters and see it as a group is, I think, important for this particular story. In just the one small screening that I went to, I sort of felt that feeling again of like everybody going through something together and really hearing each other's reactions and feeling each other there and going through it as a unit.
What I loved about seeing it in theaters too was in a theater. I saw a little screening of it, but we're really getting an opportunity to see all of these characters like so close up, and we're really realizing how much these characters are really going through by literally being closer to their face, because we're able to, use certain shots that we're literally being close to, their face and what these characters are actually feeling, which is also pretty important, I think, which is really beautiful too.
I'm sorry about my brother.
Have you ever felt forgotten in the middle of nowhere? I wish everything was different. I wish I was part of something. I wish that anything I said mattered. Have you ever felt like you could disappear?
Dear Evan Hansen.
Yeah, that's mine. I'll just take it. Wait, I need that back. Like you could fall and no one would hear. It didn't take me a second to get back into Evan. I feel like that came pretty easily just because I sort of have created the character for many years, and so the essence of it feels very easily accessible. More so for me, it was the thing that was a learning curve that I figured out as we go was sort of like, what is the physical life of him in this medium? Like, because it's obviously you're not playing to the back of the house, you're playing, like Kaitlyn was saying, right here. So it's a lot. It's on the one hand a lot easier because you can communicate a lot more by doing a lot less, but it's also more difficult because we fall in love with the characters and we want to make sure that we're telling the story right. And for Evan especially, I always want to be communicating, how torn apart he is inside and how anxious he is and how alone he feels. And as much as I want to believe that when I feel those things, they broadcast easily, I come from the theater where I need to also show those things. And so it was definitely a learning curve for me to sort of strip some of that away and rely on kind of more the internal life. For me, it was a lot about balancing, like, listening to instincts and autopilot things that kicked in and memories of kind of, emotional, visceral things that just were still there because I just did it for so many years, and allowing those things to come back and let them be natural and kind of second nature, but then also making sure to challenge that and keep it spontaneous and keep it really close to the ground. And really, Kaitlyn in particular was a really kind of a godsend in that regard, because she's just she doesn't have a dishonest bone in her body. She just, like, everything she says is she just stays so naturally grounded and authentic. So as long as I'm playing in the world that she's playing in, I felt really that it was very human and super real.
But also Steven was really, that was something that was really important to him, was portraying all of these emotions, but in a very grounded way, and never, it was always leveled out every single day on set. It was always sort of like, exploring, like, getting into it more, but also keeping it at a level where, it never felt like we were pushing anything.
Totally. More so than any musical movie that I've really ever seen, I feel like the texture of it stays really small and really real, and it never becomes operatic or theatrical or pushed. Like Kaitlyn was saying, it stays really, really close to the ground. What we're lucky to have already is the material is so kind of symbiotic. Like Stephen Levinson's script and the lyrics of Pascal and Paul's songs, they sound like they're being spoken by the same people. The vernacular is just really smooth. Like, you don't have to shift the way you're speaking when you sing. And so I think for us, it was about keeping the singing as close to the feeling of the scenes as possible, and not letting them take you to any kind of fantastical place, but keeping it very naturalistic and very, like, as if we were just continuing to speak to each other. Yeah,
it was more of like the way I was thinking about it was just a continuation of the scene when I would start to sing. The pre-records were a little bit different, spending a longer amount of time just working on the song. But when we were able to just, be in Evan's bedroom singing Only Us, or having a scene before Only Us, and then just starting to sing, it felt very much like a natural thing to do. It felt very grounded. So there was this one moment we were singing Only Us, and we had done it all day in circles, literally. We had this shot where we couldn't stop laughing when we were doing Only Us. We just had to sing the last bit over and over and over again while the camera circled us so they could get the shot right. And I've never squeezed someone's hand so hard.
It was just, we were at the end of the day and we were so tired and we couldn't stop laughing. But it was the point in the day where it's like, and no one else thinks it's funny. You know what I mean? Like, everyone else is like, we want to go home.
We are running out of time.
And
Stop.
It's so involuntary. We just couldn't. And it was like, we looked at each other and that made it worse. But the whole song is about how much we love each other and we have to look at each other. So it was.
It worked. It really, I think they actually used a shot of us.
It's nice.
Almost peeing our pants. Mm-hmm. But there was a really beautiful moment. By the end of the day, we were just singing this song, just not on camera, just for sound. And I got a little emotional because it was like our last time singing it together. So that was a very special moment.
Even when the dark comes crashing through,
Connor's mother and stepfather are here to see you.
When you need a friend to carry you,
Connor wanted you to have this.
And when you're broken on the ground.
Dear Evan Hansen, he wrote it to you.
His last words, Connor took his own life.
Hey, what? I'm sorry, Connor didn't write this.
No, please. It's this.
You will be found.
We didn't think Connor had any friends.
It was a scary thing. Like I said, it was very first people on the moon vibes, like in terms of going with such a large production during the pandemic, and we didn't really know what to expect. It was very strict to Universal's credit. We really were only able to go to work and then home, and we were shot in Atlanta, but we might as well have been anywhere. We really never went to a single business or public space in Atlanta.
Couldn't tell you a single thing about Atlanta.
We lived together during the movie, and we spent a lot of time in that house together, and we just, it made it, for me personally, it just made it so much warmer and more like familial of an experience, because it could have been a very isolated experience, which at times it was, but it just, there was such a safe haven to come home to. And my birthday was while I was shooting as well, and I was working that day and she wasn't, and when I got home, she had cooked me this amazing breakfast for dinner meal for my birthday, and there was balloons and a present, and she got me a vintage t-shirt with Pikachu on it, and it was just the sweet. It was like having, you know, my family waiting at home.
Oh, it was so nice. It was really such a special thing. I can't even imagine what it would have been like if we were just
Alone.
Going back to a house alone. It made the biggest difference.
We watched Love Island every night when we got home, and that was sort of what I looked forward to every day. So
I remember, Ben, you coming home pretty much every day you'd come home. I mean, most days we were working together and we'd come home together, but like some days he would come home and his face was so puffy from crying all day. And it was just so nice to embrace and a hug and go snuggle on the couch and watch Netflix. It was really so nice. But it's not something you can shake off at the end of the day. But having each other made a really big difference.
for sure, I think that in some ways it was easier than when you do the show, because there were certain days where we were only doing a slightly brighter scene or something that wasn't as heavy, and we only had to attack each moment one time for 1 day or 2 days. So in that respect, it was a little bit easier of a process. But with the show, there's like this instant gratification when you finish of like the audience's reception, and then you see people backstage, and there's hugging, and there's all this like dissipation of the reality, and then you go home and back to yourself. Whereas when you finish shooting, it feels sort of unfinished, and so you kind of stay in that like limbo. And it's also so visceral to be like in these spaces and in these rooms and houses and schools and like experiencing it that up close. It just makes the reality a little harder to shake. But again, yeah, it was nice to have someone to help me do that every day.
I mean, you really gonna tell these people that the only thing they have left of their son is a letter that you wrote to yourself?
So, you and Connor, tell us something, please.
Right. I started talking and
You couldn't stop.
they didn't want me to stop.
I'm putting together a memorial service. If you wanted to do something,
Connor showed me that I wasn't alone. Nobody is. So let that lonely feeling wash away. Maybe there's a reason to believe you'll be okay.
I didn't know that you were hurting.
'Cause when you don't feel strong enough to stand,
a lot of people feel like us.
you can reach out your hand.
People started sharing it. It's everywhere.
I don't understand what happened.
You did.
You don't know how much you've given my family and me. Were you ever actually friends with him?
I never meant to make it such a mess. I was trying to help. If you knew who I am.
I think for me, the most exciting change, which was already exciting in the script and now is even more exciting to see it fully realized, is the third act of the film, like the very end of the film. In the musical, just by virtue of a stage show and the amount of time you're willing to kind of sit there and just the theatricality of it, there's very little closure. Once Evan confesses to the family, he has not that much redemption in terms of like, he doesn't really have to repent in any real way. We get a sense that he is going to in the future, which is obviously makes the musical work in the end, but we don't get to see really what that means. And there's a whole, I don't want to give too much away, but there's a whole section now of the film where Evan gets to really come clean in a really meaningful way and really go to work to try to make some good based on what he's done and sort of what he's left in his wake, and try to help the family heal in a more healthy way. And it ends up being a really, really beautiful, really moving part of the film. That was the part that really got me because it was new to me to see. So that I think that people will be excited by that. And it felt like something that was always natural to Evan and that I always assumed in my head off stage had happened and that he had done, and was always part of like the inner life. So to get to actually do that and like physicalize it and actualize it, I think was really fun.
And getting to witness that as on the sidelines was definitely, it was life-changing. It was definitely it was the coolest thing ever. You did it in such an effortless way. And even watching Amy Adams watch you in the moment is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and it was just the best. It was really just amazing. Amy is truly just such a light. which is something so inspiring to be around on set because, you know, given the state we were in the world, it was just so, I mean, I think we could all feel this on set, but everybody on our team was just so excited to be working and having, you know, even Danny there. And, you know, I can remember our dinner table scenes with Danny Pino and Amy Adams and Ben and all of us sitting there. I just felt, and those were some of our first days on set, but I just felt that just everybody felt so happy to be there. But especially working with Amy Adams, you can just, she is such a light on set, and she is so kind and sweet. I mean, she literally just, she really felt like my mom. And I mean, just getting to watch Amy Adams, I mean, it's like a full-on masterclass. It's insane.
We were shooting in their big, beautiful, like, Murphy house, and our sort of hang when we were not going, like, between shots and setups and stuff, was just to go upstairs into, like, different bedrooms and stuff. So I went up to my, like, little hideout while I was waiting, and then I heard all this singing coming from downstairs in the dining room, and then I walked downstairs, and Kaitlyn and Amy were just kind of, like, walking around the dining room table singing something together. What were you singing? Do you remember? It was like,
it's probably like
Karen Carpenter or
Karen
something.
Carpenter, yeah, I think it was.
And I was like, this is why we do this.
Exactly. Amy Adams does love a good karaoke moment.
She loves to sing.
She loves to sing.
And Julie Moore was amazing and just so warm. And she came in a little bit late. We had like a kind of a concentrated couple weeks that was all the Heidi stuff. And she jumped right in and really made me feel that we had known each other for a really long time. And we had a real kind of familiar rapport quite quickly, which was obviously very important for our characters. And she made that incredibly easy. And she has, similar to Amy, for someone who's been such a veteran, and, you know, Julianne Moore has been in hundreds of films, like, for her to still have so much joy in the work and be so excited to be there and have so much silliness and, like, no hubris and no ego and just want to play and have a good experience was like, I just can only hope that if I'm ever to reach that point in my career that I still feel that way. So she was a very inspiring person. When we were shooting the part of Words Fail, the first part of Words Fail, where I confessed to the family, I asked our director, to his credit, you know, Stephen Chbosky would always really ask me kind of in terms of the scheduling of the day and when things were shot, he would defer to me in terms of like, how do we execute this performance and what do you really need, which I so appreciated. And in that case, I asked, can we start with my coverage? You know, usually you do something like a big master and everybody gets to kind of establish what they're doing and then we come in. And I said, you know, can we please just get my side done with and let me just kind of release all this? And, you know, I obviously expected Kaitlyn and Amy and Danny to, you know, be present with me and to allow me to give from off camera someone to receive this song. But what was so moving to me was that they lived entirely the full reality of it, not even on camera, not even in their coverage, just crying with me and hearing the information in real time with me every time, like 6 times before we're even turning around on them. And so when we finally finished my side and I thought I was done crying, I then started crying again and I went up to them and I just hugged them and I was like, I can't believe how generous you all are that you went through that emotionally with me so many times just for me, even though you still have yours to give. And I'll always remember that day for sure.
Well, Ben, I have to say we had no other choice but to just be so enthralled with his beautiful performance. I mean, what he was doing was just take after take. We were just sobbing and crying our eyes out. So you made it very real for us, so we didn't have to really do anything.
Well, then never mind. This movie has a lot.
There's a lot of tears, but also a lot of smiles.
For sure, a lot of smiles.
A lot of laughter.
A lot of laughs.
A lot of hugs.
And tons of jokes. I think the movie does a really good job. Again, it's a very heavy story and obviously could be oppressively heavy and weighted, and I think the movie does a really good job of having it be a slow burn, and everybody has small moments where they live fully emotionally, and everybody earns those, I think. And then at the end, which is the more kind of operatic section where most of this crying happens, I feel like it's by the time we get there, we're kind of ready for it in a way that's specific to the film.
Yeah, and I think that's a testament to Steven's vision for the movie. One of the first things he told me in our one of our first just read-throughs of the script when I first got to Atlanta was the fact that his goal for the movie was to see the joy in every shot and really feel the joy in every shot, even though this film can have its really tragic and painful and sad moments. And even in the scenes with my family, you know, what this family has gone through is unthinkable. But the fact that there is still some love behind all of this, like, anger and joy between, like, literally he saw joy in all of the shots. And I thought that was something that was, really important, because you can so easily go into a sadder tone, but he wanted to have that levity in all of the shots, which is, I think, very important.
I think it's playing against all of that heaviness and all of that angst and that deep well of sadness until there's no choice but to play it. I think it's sort of like leaving it till the last possible moment, which he was a big proponent of as well, which I think comes across in the movie. The moments that really go there are only the ones that really have to go all the way there.
Just how broken I am.
I already know you. And I love you.
I have to tell them.
I just wanted to do everything in my power beforehand to feel myself like him. I wanted to get a little smaller because I always have seen Evan as sort of like a ganglier kind of a kid who doesn't necessarily have the safety to have a great appetite. I think a lot of times when you have a lot of anxiety, you have a hard time eating for anything other than fuel. And so I lost like 18 pounds or so, and with my little Fitbit regimen, and had a really fun diet that Kaitlyn helped me to keep, and we found like 5 or 6 meals via Postmates that we loved and that fit within the diet that we would just kind of cycle through.
Through 5.
So it was about that physically. I shaved my arms to try to give a little more teen vibe. I shaved my face like 3 times a day because I'm a Jew and my hair grows really fast on my face, and I obviously wanted to not feel that. So it was just about doing everything in my power, and also I grew my hair out and let it, be as kind of Jew curly as it wants to be, because I also saw him as kind of shrouded and.
You wore your original Evan shoes that you wore.
I did. I wore my New Balance.
And didn't you want you to tell them that you wore your original shoes?
Tell them about your shoes.
And your shirt.
Tell them about your shoes. I wore my gray New Balance shoes that I wore every performance 8 times a week for all of Evan Hansen, for the DC production, for the off-Broadway production, and for the Broadway production. And they're like barely holding together, but I really was keen on that. So in pretty much every scene, other than like, there's one scene where we go to a dance very briefly together and I got to wear dress shoes. But other than that, in every scene I'm wearing those shoes, and that kind of was like a grounding thing. It was less about like, no one was telling me obviously that I needed to do any of these things or was trying to force me to do any of these things. It was for me just like feeling the most like him that I could. And then once I had done all those things that were within my power to do, just kind of letting that go and feeling like, this is what I look like, this is who I am, this is the character, and not kind of trying to dwell on that once those changes were made. But yeah, that was my process. We talked about pretty much everything. All the songs, all the people. It's just really good. Oh, Nick Dodani's amazing. Amanda Stenberg's amazing. Colton Ryan is amazing. They're just really brilliant and reinvent their characters in a very special ways. And so they're fantastic too.
Yeah, that's it.